18 is where we're going to start today. 1 Kings 18 is where we're going to start. And we're going to talk about, literally today we're going to talk about the toll of depression. And I think a lot of us feel that depression is something that's not real. By the way, I'm going to put my timer on. Not this specifically for today. Brian and I would share with you why, but just see, oh, that was cool. Okay, so these chimes might go off halfway through, we're going to find out. All right? So, we're going to talk about depression and the toll that it has on each one of us, because I think a lot of times the issue is that we don't actually recognize depression until, for some of us, it's almost too late. This past weekend, my kids had baseball games, and on Saturday, my wife got up and Becca had softball in Kidron and in Orville. So she left the house at 7:30 in the morning. And because of the day, the way it went, we did not get home until 10:30 at night. And some of you are like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. And what do I tell myself? I'm going to have kids. Don't get into baseball. Don't get into softball. And that's not it at all. We actually, the tournaments were about 15, 20 minutes apart. So we got to go to Becca, then we'd come back to see Nathan, we go to Nathan, we come back to see Becca. But what happened was, the reason the day ended up being so long, if you've ever been a baseball family or softball family, is that in the middle of the day, things can take place that can all of a sudden kind of ruin your plans. I mean, we had a plan that, okay, Deanna's waking up at 7:30, and she is leaving at 8, and the game starts at 9:30, and then I'm getting Nathan up at 8:30, and we're leaving at 9, and then the game starts at 9:45, and one thing led to another, and the next thing you know, all the games got pushed back. But when we finally got there, and all the weather had gone away, I'm sitting there, and I'm watching this game, and I thought, man, did God make a beautiful day. I mean, it was in the 70s, wind was blowing just a little bit, you could just kind of sit there and enjoy it. Clouds were up. It almost looked like the beginning of The Simpsons, where it's like the beautiful cloud, like, oh, you know, and it was very relaxing. I'm sitting around parents that I actually like, and that they actually like me. They laugh at all my stupid jokes still, because they haven't known me long enough, you know, which is great. Because if my daughter and they're like, Dad, I've heard that 18 times, because that's what kids do, and you're like, stop, you're messing with my timing, that kind of stuff. So we're having a great discussion. We'll talk about all things are wonderful, but I'm just sitting around looking and going, man, there's 25 kids that are out there, actually 30 kids that are out there to just get to play a game. You know, you look back and you're like, man, oh man, they can just have fun. You know, everyone's putting the pressure on them about this college scout and this pro scout, and everyone's watching them, and then you watch the kids and they don't care about that. I mean, they care about it, but at the same time, they're just enjoying each other. You know, someone isn't the fastest guy in the world, they're out there yelling, you're too slow, and joking around with them, and then the guy comes around to score, and you're so fast, and they're hugging each other, and they're banging helmets, and just enjoying the time. And it's just such a great thing to see, and then the parents, it's up to them as to how they're going to treat the situation, but we're just trying to sit there and enjoy it. And then as we're sitting there enjoying it, before you realize it, you're looking around, you're seeing the people, and this beautiful day, all of a sudden it turned cloudy. Just like that. And you're like, where did this come from? The sun was right there. It was shining. It was beautiful out. And now all of a sudden these clouds are here. And I mean, before you even knew it, boom, it was raining. And then, okay, well, we can start to play through the rain. So it's raining for a little bit. And then the next thing you know, you see lightning. And then that's it. We call the game for at least 30 minutes. Everyone has to go sit down. Like, okay, what's 30 minutes? I can go out. I can study in my car. You know, I can write. And here's a funny thing that I've never understood. You go out in your car, you sit in your car, and yet all the kids, the 16-year-olds, they stay on the field in the dugout, sitting on a metal bench usually. Does that make any sense? I mean, if you're gonna postpone the game for 30 minutes, you should tell all the kids, go to your cars, go to your parents' cars. Because the umpires do. They leave the field, they go sit in their car, and the next time they see lightning, it starts for 30 minutes again. But we leave all the kids out there. You know why? Well, the kids don't want to leave, first off, and second of all, they think they're bulletproof, and third off, sometimes we're not the smartest bunch of parents in the world, right? That should be on us to grab our kids and bring them over. But it changed so quickly. And so now you have to wait. You have no choice because the storm has come, you've heard the thunder, you've seen the lightning, and you have no choice but to wait. But how you wait is up to you. You want to be that person that's on the field like, oh, you know, I'm 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and you know, lightning really can't strike me, I'll be fine. You want to be that person that's just out there because the kids are having fun, they're joking back and forth, they're running back and forth, just enjoying the time. Or do you want to be that parent that likes, oh, I've got to go huddle in my car and get away as fast as I can. Some people take it as a time like, yes, this is great for me, I can run and get something to eat. Some parents, they took pictures of them, they literally were sleeping in their cars. See, when these storms come, how we react to them is very key. And because depression is something that takes us from the inside out, how we react in times is very key. And it happens to all of us. Some of us don't want to admit it. I'm very extroverted. For those of you who don't know me, I'm very kind of outgoing. I don't feel like I get depressed. I don't feel like it's there. But then when you start to read the Bible, you start to look, well, maybe some of those symptoms are there. Maybe I am doing some of the things that can lead to depression. So if you're a person like, I don't deal with depression, if you're someone more like me, where like, it's not something I really deal with it, you may think that you're never going to have to worry about this. And that's great. But at some point, sometime, you have to understand something. You have to admit something. These things are going to happen to you. And so if you have a way where you deal with this very well, and you know how to deal with it, you need to help that person that does. Because the person that gets depressed, they don't realize they're depressed many times until it's too late. Things have happened in their life, they've isolated themselves, they've moved on, they've moved inward. And when that happens, they're in trouble. And so saying things like, hey, you know what, I prayed for you today, is a great thing. It's a great step to take. But there has to be more. Because that person that is dealing with it, you have no idea the demons that are taking place within. And they need our help. And especially as a believer, and especially as someone who is sharing light and bringing light, if you're not willing to go and take that step to that person that God has already put on your heart while you sit here, I would challenge you to ask yourself, am I really doing what I'm called to do as a believer? Because I'm called to be a light, and I'm called to be salt, and I'm called to love others, and I'm called to share faith, and I'm called to bring hope. At the end of the day, I'm called to love others just as Christ loved me. See, the example of Christ that we find throughout the New Testament is he didn't just sit back, did he? There were times when he went to pray, and when he prayed, he was always praying for others. He was always there to lift them up, and he always came out of the mountain. He always came out of the garden. He always came out from wherever he was at, and he said, now it's time to go and minister to others. Now it's time to go and love others. And for every one of us, it could be in a different place. It's summertime. It could be in a campground. It could be at a baseball field. It could be at a softball field. It could be in some kind of extracurricular event that your daughter, son, grandson, whatever it might be, is at, and there's adults sitting all over the place that someone just needs to say, hey, how are you doing today? Hey, do you mind if I sit down close to you? Hey, do you care if we chat some? Is it okay if I sit here to help to start conversations? They can say no. And if they say no, okay, that's fine. You just quietly move on. But God is going to bring people in your life that are going to have the same thing that happened to Elijah today. And what happens is, all of a sudden it's sunny. The clouds are out, it's 70, it's beautiful. You're thanking God for this beautiful, wonderful day. You can't believe how nice it is, and all of a sudden, bam! You see lightning and thunder hits, and you hear it. And you start to like, whoa, that's really far away. Then boom, it gets closer. And boom, it gets closer. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh my goodness, I'm in the midst of this storm that I never expected to happen. Now what is it that I do? Elijah is going to show us what to do as we start today in 1 Kings 18. Starting in verse 16, it says, so Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. When he saw Elijah, he said to him, is that you, troubler of Israel? So what's going on is the king and Elijah is the prophet. There's been this big drought that's going on. And Elijah is trying to get Ahab to understand that, listen, it's not about you. It's about God. And I'm going to show you it's about God because God is with me. And so the first thing that Ahab does is, well, I'm going to go ahead and accuse you, because when they're having this discussion, there's no way that the king is alone. This is not a one-on-one conversation. The king doesn't go anywhere without having people with him. But he's going to do the first thing he can by putting him down. And so he says, is that you, O troubler of Israel? I have not made trouble for Israel, Elijah replied, but you and your father's family have. So this is something that's going way back. This isn't something that's just like all of a sudden happened. It's taken over time. He says, but you and your father's family have. You have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed the Baals. So in other words, you've taken a step away from God. And by you taking a step away from God, you've taken a step toward someone and something else. In this case, it's another god. It's Baal that they're pointing to. But many times for us, what is that God that we turn to? What is that God that all of a sudden we start to worship? And when we start to worship that God, what we're doing in turn is also no longer worshiping the one God that loves us. Hey, I'm a believer. I love Jesus. I want other people to know about Jesus. I want other people to know about His love. I want them to feel that and to understand that. That's what I want for each one of them. But, you know, I have this stuff over here first, and I have these things here, and these are really the things that are most important. And so our life does not match up with the actual mission that we take. The conversation continues, says, you have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed the Baals. Now some of the people from all over Israel come meet me on Mount Carmel and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. We're going to turn to 19, verse 1. Let me sum to you so you know what kind of happens here. There's 450 prophets of one God. There's 400 prophets of another God. Asherah are these poles that they used to light incense kind of stuff, and Baal is this God that's just this God that they chose to. They would go into the hills, they would build altars, and literally they would go and worship this. So now Elijah has said, you know what, here's the deal, Mr. King Ahab. You've abandoned God. And I've tried to show you just how powerful God is. I've tried to share with you just how powerful God is. And you don't want to pay attention. You want to do things your way. You want to do it however it is that you choose. And because of that, you're not following the Lord's commands. Listen, one of the main things that I really want to get focused on is that we focus here. Some of you may be angry at people, some of you may not like some people, whatever it might be. And we understand that this word sometimes is for rebuke and sometimes it's for correction. It's also for love. But you're going to hear me say this repeatedly. This is the kind of faith church family that we want to be a part of. We want to learn it. We want to live it. We want to love others with it. We want to learn it. We want to live it. We want to love others with it. How do you argue with that? Some people do, and you know why? You want to know why they argue with it? Because they have a Baal or they have an Asherah pole in their life somewhere that they have put ahead of God. Period. It could be vocation. It could be a hobby. Whatever it might be. But they have put that ahead of God. Now, in their minds, no, we haven't done that. We haven't done that. These prophets that are about to take place, these 850 prophets, in their mind, these 850 prophets, they now have the one true God. So here's what happens. It's a battle. It's an absolute battle. And the numbers are this, 850 to 1. 850 to 1. Who's going to win? Well, if you're in a battle, 850 to 1, you against 850 people, who's going to win? The numbers say that 850 are going to win. But if I said to you, and I change it this way, 850 who are against God and 1 who had God with him, who's going to win? And we would answer the one that has God with them. So why do we fear things? Why do we allow things to eat us up? Why do we allow things to bother us? Why do we allow teachers who put us down, or coaches who belittle us, or people that scream at us for no reason? People that call us names. People that remind us of our past. People that say, you can't. All of those things come into play. Why do we do that? Because if you are one that has God, it doesn't matter what the number is on the other side that doesn't have God. Because God's already won. When are we going to start acting like it? And you're thinking, man, there's just no way. It's not even 850 against 1. It's 1 against 1. It's 2 on 1. It's 3 on 1. If he or she's mean, and they yell, and they call names, and they speak louder and louder all the time, and they put me down, and they say things about me interpersonally, and they what does God say about you? What does God say about me? Because that's what matters in the end. Because what God says about you and what you share with others so that they can see God is the most important thing in your life. Now some of you are sitting there going, wait, does that mean I can't have hobbies? Does that mean I can't like sports? Does that mean I can't have money? Does that mean I can't have a nice house? Nope, doesn't mean any of those things. God may be blessing you in wonderful, fantastic ways. What are you doing with those blessings to bless others with what God has blessed you with? Because when it comes to the person that starts to feel depressed, they've already started that inward battle. And they're heading down that spiral, and it's right around the drain. And They're going further and further and further into it. And they're trying everything they can to put on a face and to make it look good and to make it seem good. But they're dying inside. And they're dying inside because they're focused in the wrong area. And it happens to all of us. The war takes place, it's 850 versus 1. And the 1 defeats the 850. Defeats the 850. Gets rid of every single one of them. Before the king, before everyone. And watch what happens to them. Verse 1:19. Chapter 19. Now Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a message to Elijah to say, may the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them. In other words, I'm killing you. You got 24-hour notice, and you are done. In 24 hours, you're finished. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. This is the same guy. This is the same guy that was just running shortly before this because God gave him the strength to run ahead of the king. The same guy. You just had God with you and you ran like the wind. And now one person says one bad thing and you're going to believe it and you're going to run for your life. And that's what he did. Oh my goodness, they said, she said, he said, those people. And we take that in and that fear comes upon us because for some reason we believe that that person, ready for this, is bigger than God. And because of it, we start to internalize it. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left a servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the desert. He came to a broom tree and sat down under it and prayed that he might die. I've had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. So now he starts a comparison game. Oh, you know what? The servant, you came with me, now you stay here. I'm going to go even further. Where did he go? He went even further into the desert. So he had someone alongside of him. He left that person. He went further into the desert. And then he just sat down and he was like, I'm done. All right, God, just go ahead and take me. Because this one woman, this one person, this one entity said something mean, and now I'm afraid. And we see what is set in for Elijah. He has already given up. All at once an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. He looked around and there by his head was a cake of bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. Listen, you can't start a fire while you're deep asleep. Did you know that? And we can do a test if you want. For all of you, God bless you, by the way. For all of you who are married tonight, when your husband is asleep, I want you to videotape it. So right before he goes to bed, I want you to say to him, I want you to get up in the middle of the night and start the fire. And then go to bed. Now you've given the direction. And the husband knows he's supposed to listen to the wife. Right, husbands? Oh my goodness, I don't see heads going like this. Okay? You're going to be... All right, here we go. So, I want you to take them then to see if they get up in the middle of the night, in a deep sleep, dead sleep, boom, to get up to go and start a fire. Guess what? It's not going to happen. And yet when Elijah turns, there is the cake that is burning on the coals. There's no one with him. He's in the desert alone. You know this happens 2 different times in the Scripture? See, there's a time when Jesus shows up on the shore after the resurrection, and he comes back to all of his disciples, and he says, hey, why don't you bring all that fish up here? And Peter realizes, oh my goodness, it's Jesus, so he jumps in the water, and they bring the fish up, and there's so many, like the nets are bursting, and they pull them out, and they have all the fish right here in front of them, and they turn around like, well, that's a lot of fish. And they look over there, and guess what's burning on the coals? More fish. Wait a second, they just caught the fish. So how did the coals get burning, and then there's food there for it? Listen, God will step in and feed you and can feed you at any time. Do you believe that? Because in his darkest hour, when he was struggling so badly, when he had already given up, when he was so afraid, when he abandoned everyone, when he went further into his own desert, he rested and then turned around, and there God already had his next meal planned. Think about that for a second. We get so caught up oh my God provided for me. Oh my God provided for me. My God provided for me. We don't look at a sandwich that way, do we? We don't look at a snack that way, do we? Well, I may as well eat. Got nothing else to do. God's going to provide for you. He is going to watch over you. He is going to care for you when you least expect it. But do you recognize it? Elijah doesn't. This is the prophet. This is Elijah we're talking about. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, get up and eat. The journey is too much for you. So he got up and ate and drank. So the first time he just looks at it, and the second time, oh, okay, now I'm listening. And for many of us, that's what has to take place. I didn't hear it the first time. Oh, wait, there's a second time. Oh, I got it. The Lord is actually present. He provided for me. Oh, now I'm starting to see it. So he got up and ate and drank, strengthened by that food. He traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There he went into a cave and spent the night. Let's stop here for a second. When was Jezebel going to kill him? And remember? The next day. The next day. So on the next day, when he was going to be killed, what did he do instead? He ate and drank because God provided it. And then he went for 40 days and 40 nights. Now think about this for a second. Someone says they're going to kill you tomorrow in 24 hours. Okay, so what are you going to do with your final day? You get to choose. You can choose whatever you want. At some point, sometime, you're going to eat and you're going to drink, right? In fact, some of you are going to go, I'm going to the fanciest restaurant wherever because that person said they're going to kill me, and then I'm done. So I'm going to go eat the best that I can eat. He leaves and he goes 40 days and 40 nights. And after 40 days and 40 nights of knowing that, hey, she hasn't killed me yet, don't you think that he would be celebrating? Woohoo! Right? Look at me. The king's wife said she's going to kill me. I'm still living. Has some really sweet cakes and something to drink. Awesome. 40 days in a row. He doesn't do that, does he? What does he do? He goes into a cave. He hasn't recognized God for who God is. It's been 40 plus days. He is still stuck on what someone has said 41 days ago. And he is still waiting for that next step. He is still waiting for it to drop on him. And God is showing him again and again, I am here for you, Elijah. And Elijah's not listening. He's just not paying attention. Many times for people that are depressed, this is what takes place. They don't recognize the symptoms. They start to cower. They start to go inward. They start to sleep too much. They start to withdraw. They start to pull themselves away. But they still have to make the decision as to when to turn back to God. And for those of you that don't deal with this or deal with it slightly, and it's not a big deal, you've seen and you know how God can bring you out of it. But there's people that have been doing this for 40 days and 40 weeks, and for some for 40 years, that need someone to come to them and say, it's okay. This is God's prophet. When Jesus died on the cross, the curtain was ripped. We don't have prophets after that. We have those that become Jesus' disciples, and then they become apostles, which means they go from listening and learning to going out and sharing the message. If you've listened and learned and become a believer, it's time for you to make the transition to be the apostle. And if you're someone today that you can totally relate to Elijah, there's a turn that can take place. You and I have to choose it. The story goes on. The Lord appears to Elijah. He says, and the word of the Lord came to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? Oh, all of a sudden now God's going to talk to him. Now, if you're the person that's depressed, hey, God, listen. That lady said she was going to kill me. She said she was going to kill me. Were you not listening to that, God? Were you not paying attention? I mean, I'm doing your work. I'm a light to everyone. I'm salty. Look at me, I'm salty. Taste me. I love people. Not all of them. I try. What are you doing, God? Are you asleep at the wheel? Are you not paying attention? She said she was going to kill me. And so now I have to come all the way out to this cave, and now you're going to recognize me? Now you're going to talk to me? Let's see how the conversation goes. What are you doing here, Elijah? He replied, I've been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. So he starts giving him a resume. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, broken down your altars, and put your prophets to death in the sword, and I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too. It's it. See, this is one area where depression will set in and you don't even realize it. We get so caught up in the things that we love that we literally turn our backs on people. He is the one who left the servant. And so he went on his way. And some people are like this in life. They would instill their will upon you, and it wears you down and beats you up. Sometimes they're called bosses. Sometimes they're called directors. Sometimes they're called managers. Sometimes they're just people that you have in your everyday life. Some people label them as A personalities. They want you to do things their way, and this is how it's going to be. And they can't even see outside of it. And so you have to make the decision. A lot of people are just like, oh yeah, what they said was fine. And yet, they don't ever take it to God. They don't ever pray about it. They don't ever find that person. And what ends up happening is, they leave a person here, and then they find themselves on an island. And they're completely alone. And then they do this. Man, I've done all this great work for you. I've reached all these people. I've loved so many. I've done what your word tells you. And now, there's people that are after me. And now you're going to show up. I'm the only one left, he says, and now they're trying to kill me too. Isolation leads to further depression. Isolation leads to further depression. You go faster down the drain, you slide more quickly down the slide, and you take yourself away from anyone that loves and cares for you. Sometimes you do it, and sometimes it's done naturally. And it's a slippery slope, because you need to be careful about the people that you choose. You need to find people that love the Lord, that love you no matter what, and that have your best interest at heart, period. Because you need those people alongside of you to lift up others. The Lord said, go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. Okay, Elijah. You go out and you stand, I'm about to pass by you. Then a great powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, and the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire, and after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. There's an earthquake taking place. An earthquake. Huge winds. And this time. There's an earthquake taking place. There's huge winds. There's all these major God things that are happening. And many times when we read this, we think, oh, this is only happening to Elijah. Earthquakes don't just happen in one spot. The earthquakes, and it'll rip major places. If you don't believe me, go on YouTube and look at some videos. They'll go through states, they'll go through countries. So when this earth is quaking, it's quaking all over the land. What land is he in? He's in the land that is the same king who has the same wife that was trying to kill him. So everybody sees this going on. And yet Elijah is so stuck on Elijah that where does Elijah stay? In the cave. The world is breaking down all around him. There's natural disasters taking place that he may have never seen or never been a part of. May have never taken place until this point. And yet he is so consumed with himself that he stays in the cave. See, when people get to that point where they start to feel that depression and they're so beat up, they can't see anything outside of the cave. The cave's dark. The cave's damp. The cave is a place to hide. And yet, while God is doing amazing things all around, it takes us to take the step outside of the cave. If you're a person that's dealing with this and struggling with this today, you have to know something. That first step you have to take. But watch what happened first. After the earthquake came the fire, but the Lord was not in the fire, and after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Even in the deepest, darkest place, where he was hiding from the fire, and he was hiding from the earthquake, and hiding from everything and all the people that he thought were after him, all he had to do was listen for that still, small voice. This past week, the youth group a couple years ago had gone on a mission trip. And there was a young man that was part of this mission trip, and what happened is they'd gone to North Carolina together. And there was multiple churches that had come in. And as we were down in Nashville, Deanna, all of a sudden, she turned to me and she was like, "Oh my goodness, I think that," I might have the dates wrong here. Deanna and I had a conversation, and I think that one of the kids that was on this mission trip died. He was like 21 or 22 years old. And of course, when someone younger like that, when that happens, we go to that place. Oh my goodness, what happened? And we fear the worst first. We're like, oh, we say things like, man, I hope it wasn't a heroin overdose. I hope it wasn't a drug overdose. I hope it wasn't something with drugs. And then you hope that, oh, I hope it wasn't some kind of accident or something, whatever it might be. And yet he's gone, so there's not a whole lot that you can do anyway. And so all you can do at that point is pray for the family. But then a little bit later, as the things start coming out, we found out that this young man who was a believer in his early 20s, and everything you see, he loved his dad, he got along with his dad, he loved his mom, he had great friends, they all thought the world of him, they thought he was wonderful. He had taken his own life. So 20-some years old, early 20s, and you're thinking, how can that possibly happen? And I think many times when we get to that, because this is a young guy who was very easy to talk with, my son spoke with him when they were on the trip. Sometimes they're trying to be so up all the time and share, oh, things are so great when they're really not so great. And then we're not honest to God, before God with it. And then we're not honest with those around us because of it. That guy's always up, and that guy's always upbeat, and he's an extrovert, and all those other kind of things. And we don't realize the turmoil that's taking place within. And then afterward, you start to look at the signs. You start thinking, how could this happen to this guy? He has all the great relationships that are taking place. He was in a cave. He was in the deepest part of the cave. And for whatever reason, he couldn't hear God's voice. Young people here today, you'd be in high school. You may have just a relationship that is so bad with mom and dad. And you're in such a deep cave. You wish you could rewind a little bit and go back and talk to them. And man, I just wish that we could have a conversation. An honest conversation. I wish that we had a better relationship. I wish that we could talk more, spend time together more. I wish that we could act like a family. God loves you. He cares for you deeply. Deeper than any of us could. Don't give up. Start by praying. Start by taking that step out of the cave. But before you do that, listen for God, because He will speak to you. And you will know that you're worth being loved, and that you're worthy of being loved. And you think there's no way you can get to tomorrow. God will bring you to tomorrow. He promises you today. That's the promise. When you wake up tomorrow, you can start by thanking Him for it. Parents that are sitting here right now and going, oh, I'm such a terrible parent. I've done such a bad job raising my kids. Maybe you haven't. Yeah, but they're not in church, and they're away from church, and they don't train up a child. So keep praying for them. You're in a cave. Some of your marriages right now, you're Your husband or your wife isn't sitting with you, or your husband and wife, they left. You're thinking, there's never going to be anyone else. There's no possible way. You're in a cave. God's bigger than all of that. But we have to be willing enough to recognize it. Oh, that poor little guy. We all enter the cave at times. Elijah, look at me. I understand. Poor little guy, I hate that too. Elijah beat 850 prophets that were against God. 1 on 850. And he still chose to walk further into the desert. And he still chose to put someone behind him. And he still went into the cave. And even as God showed all of his power, he stayed there. But when he stopped long enough to listen, God spoke to him. I've been blessed to have a family in our life over the years. And they're beautiful girls and they're beauty girls. And I was talking with one of them this morning and she said, I'm finally here because I don't have a job that makes me work on the weekends. But she chose to be here. And over time, I can look back and we have pictures from our fairs and we had marks on our faces and we talked about, with one with her husband, talked about these concrete things that they make. And I go back to all those times together, watching one of them play basketball and listen to one that's telling me jokes. And I mean, but always there to give a hug and to just to share who they are and what's going on. And I love to hear every part about it. Isn't it amazing when you haven't seen someone for a while, you say, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? And they start to share some of those things, good, bad, or indifferent, that you get a chance to listen to them and embrace that. And you know what it does? It allows them to release it. That still small voice may be that person that you've hugged for the first time in weeks or months, for years. Our conversation went a little further when we started talking about how in the busyness of life, we're just going and going and going. See, the last thing that we have to understand is that God's going to let you rest at times. He's going to give you that time to rest. So if you're feeling those things and you're depressed a little bit, God's going to give you those moments to rest. Right after this takes place, God turns to Elijah and says, here's your marching orders. God gets that we get down at times. God gets that we get depressed at times. God gets that we get consumed with ourselves at times. But we're in a society that goes 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that's what part of what you talked about is that when I've gone over to Germany, it was so weird because on the weekends, you know what people do in Europe on the weekends? They rest. They rest. If you didn't get your gas on Friday, you waited until Monday. If you didn't get your food on Friday, you ate cardboard until Monday. That's just how it is. Now, it's changing. But in this country in which we live in, go, 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 go. And then we start to look and we're like, oh my goodness, my kid's taller than me now. When we start to look and we're like, that one's going to be driving soon. Wait a second, those are already driving. What has happened and what has taken place? It's called life. But do we want to keep waiting and waiting and waiting? Or do we want to start recognizing God within those moments? The next thing that takes place is God says, hey, I gave you the time to rest. Hey, I fed you. Even when you thought you were supposed to be dead, I still fed you. And for 40 more days, I fed you. And so here's what you need to do. Get out of the cave. Go here and do this. We're down and we're discouraged and we're pitting ourselves and we're beating ourselves up and we're lonely and all those things that takes place. We listen for God's voice then we have to make the choice to go out and invest in others. To go out and dive into other people. To go out and find out how they're living life and how they're getting through every single day. And to ask them their questions. How you doing as a husband? How you doing as a wife? How you doing as a friend? Deanna and I, last night, chose to take a walk. We had this wonderful, lonely time together. And she's like, hey, do you want to go for a walk? And to which I answered, are you crazy? At first she said, I actually started talking about taking a run. You know, she goes, we can walk and we can run and we can walk. And I'm like, slow down, okay? Because the only way I'm running is if a dinosaur is chasing me, all right? I'll even take my chance with a grizzly bear. I think I got, I'm ready to go, okay? But I'm just not a runner. Look at me. I don't look like a runner, right? But we started walking. And so as we're walking, we're talking. And when I say we are talking, the Bible says two become one. When you're marriage, she was talking. I was doing everything I could to keep up with her. And she's like, we gotta go fast this, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. Okay. I'm like, my legs are longer, so I'm just trying to get, and then what was making me mad, I didn't tell her this, but I'm going to, she kept taking the inside lane on the turns. So I had to walk on the outside. I tried to cut her off a couple times, zing, right in front of me, like, and then she made the excuse, oh, there's this other couple coming. I'm like, they're 4 miles away. That's my lane. So I had to go around her. So I ended up actually walking probably close to 1/100th of a mile further than she did. So we start with the pace, and we're going along, we're walking, and we are talking, and she's sharing this, she's sharing that, we're talking about it. I'm like, and she's like, you okay? I'm like, oh, we gotta just keep doing your thing when you're talking. And then she tells me that these are like the dreaded words. If you ever go for a walk with your spouse, these are dreaded words. She's like, you're kind of slowing me down. We're actually walking too slow, so I need you to pick up the pace. Now, my hamstrings and my, whatever these front muscles are, and then down there, everything on me is screaming. Okay? And I have the wrong shoes, and I have the wrong socks. I'm thinking about doing the Zola Bud thing and taking off my shoes and socks, just going barefoot. But I'm up at, but in my mind, I'm like, you know what? This is the very thing that we need right now. We just need to get out and go. We need to get out and just take a walk. And then, at the same time within that, just enjoy one another and say we're gonna dive into this people, we're gonna dive into, but at the same time, we got home. You know what we did? She fell asleep within an hour. Within an hour. She was tired and she rested. But before that, we got home and there was no kids there. She turned to me and she said, you know what I'm gonna do? And I said, what? You're going to cover your ears, Dad? Nope, he's not for Mom. She goes, I'm going to vacuum. There's so many vacuum jokes going on right now. And she did. And she vacuumed. She was so happy, vacuuming all over the place. And our dogs freaked out. The one dog freaks out when we vacuum and barked at the thing. When she got done vacuuming, she went up and she rested. It is okay for you and I to rest. God wants us to. During those times of rest, those are the times that we need to listen for God's voice to make us stronger for the next day. And the things that happened to Elijah can happen to you and to me. None of us are taking on 850 prophets, but we all have that one person that we hear about. We all have that one person that says, and because of that, we take ourselves off to the desert. We alienate ourselves. We isolate ourselves. We end up in this deep, dark cave. If you need to get out of it, you listen for God's voice. And then you go out to love and to serve others. And listen for His voice the entire way. Depression is real. Everyone deals with it at some point. Maybe small, maybe big. If you're someone on the small side, you can listen for God's voice and take that step. Take that step out, because the people that you may be going to may be the very people that are struggling with it. But know that what's been happening then is still happening now. Because when he came outside of the cave, Elijah, there was a world that was before him. And with all of the destruction that had taken place around him, God was right there with him. And then and God sent him out to love and to care for others that he had brought into his life. Starts here, ends here. Learn it, live it, love others with it. Would you bow your heads, please, so we say a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together. Lord, I thank you for the example of Elijah. Lord, if it happens to Elijah, it can happen to any single one of us. So God, we give you this time today. Lord, it's so awesome to know that we are worthy of being loved. But God, there's people here today that are truly dealing with what Elijah dealt with. It just seems as if everyone is against us. And it may just seem as if one person is against us, but it weighs us down and beats us up. Lord, help us to know that it's okay to rest, but not so much that we take ourselves away from the world. Help us to dive into the people that you bring into our lives. Help us to love and care for them. Help us to know, Lord, that you love us in that same way. And as we rest in your voice, help us to know that there's the next day for us to go out to share and to care for others. Lord, every day help us to learn it. Lord, every day help us to live it. God, help us every day to love others with it. Give you this time, so we pray.